we're trying to start somewhat, a little bit early because our guest has to rush to the airport on private eye business. We'll order off, but we're lucky she is still gonna honor her obligation and fit us in, even if she's in a big rush. Hopefully she will come back in the future and we'll have time for more stuff about private eyes and having your own PI investigative and everything else, you know, that entails questions and so forth. So Anji MaCuk is the owner and operator of She Spies Private Eye Incorporated. She's our guest speaker today, and her experience as a probation officer, along with her degree in criminal justice, led Angie to the Austin Police Department, where she was hired as a background investigator. It was during her time with the APD that her love of investigation led her to the realization that she wanted to become an independent private investigator. She decided to pursue her career as a private investigator and apprenticed with another well-established PI for a year. In 2003, she opened up She Spies Private Eye, Inc., which has been flourishing ever since. So, according to Angie, being a good private investigator requires more than just experience and skills. It also requires a true passion for investigation, a personal interest in each client's case, and a fierce tenacity. This is precisely what has fueled Angie's success, as well as the success of She Spies Private Eye, Inc. And I ask you, Angie's going to have to, I said, run to the airport, so when she leaves, please don't y'all leave. We have some business to take care of, like for elections, for the upcoming, for 2017 officers, and also some other business. So we're just going to do it after the fact so we can get started early. Anyway, I'm proud to present Anji MaCuk, Private Eye.
And she said it all, and I think I'm done. No, again, I'm Angie. It's very nice to be here. Thank y'all for inviting me. And I apologize, I am having to leave. Of course, I have to fly out to New York and to work on a case. And the latest flight they could get me on was 4:28, so I've got a mad dash out of here. So I apologize, but I've got cards if anybody wants to reach out to me later and email me, call me, feel free to. And the way I'm going to do this, normally what I do when I speak is I will talk all about me and kind of my past and what PIs do, and what I answer a lot of questions that people have asked me previously. But today I'm going to do it a little different since I'm rushing out. I kind of going to brief you a little bit, and then I want y'all to be able to have time to ask questions, because I want to try to at least answer the majority of the questions you may have before I leave. So we can kind of do like a little bit of question and answer throughout the time that I'm here. But basically, Gail said it, I've been in business since 2003, and always wanted to be an FBI agent. However, I ended up having a child at a young age, and they said, well, unless you want to be traveling all over the world with your child, an infant, this probably isn't going to be the career for you. So I decided, okay, we need to think of something else. So I got my criminal justice degree and decided from there I was either going to go into law school or kind of figure out what route I wanted to go. I was a juvenile probation officer. That's where I learned how I loved working with kids, and we'll come back to that. Loved working with the at-risk youth, and had no idea that that was going to be a very passionate area for me. And did that for 7 years, and finally I got burned out on the system. And not the kids, love the kids, the system. So I decided, okay, I need to do something else. That's when I went to work for the Austin Police Department. I was a background investigator, and loved doing the investigations, and met a PI who said, your background and what you do, you should be a private investigator. So I did my research, here I am. Now, that was 14 years ago. Times have changed over 14 years. We used to be regulated by the Texas Commission on Private Security. We were our own entity. We are not anymore. We are now regulated by the Texas Department of Public Safety. So we are now a division of, DPS. And throughout this change, they have been working out the kinks on private security or private investigations. We just actually went to a new computer system, and we're still working out those kinks, but they're making the industry more professional. We don't, when you think of a PI, do you think of someone who looks, I mean, right off the top of your head, would you think of a woman? Would you think of, you know, I don't know what you think of. Me, some people would say they have a cigar coming out of their mouth and a trench coat and a hat, and they're lurking behind a bush. And so, you know, the industry has worked real hard throughout the years to make us more professional and not have this stereotypical vision of, you know, Columbo. Not knocking Columbo, but, you know, so we've worked real hard over the years. I also, 14 years ago, was one of few females in the industry. And of course, I had to kind of prove myself because there were a lot of men, mainly men, who were ex-FBI, who were ex-law enforcement, and here comes this woman, and they were just like, and they didn't really take me seriously. However, one of my colleagues, when he was just starting out his career at the same time, we were kind of a one-person show at the time. He retired from DPS. He was real high. He was an expert in espionage. And so he started working with me because we were helping each other out. Well, after working several cases with me, he was like, Angie, I'm hiring all women now because you women know what you're doing. You do it better than us men. Not knocking you men, but, you know, so he was like, from now on, I'm hiring all women. But so I've had to prove myself over the years, but now there are a lot more women in the industry. Valerie's one of them. This is one of my private investigators, and she's also my PR person. So we're growing, and we do a wide variety of things. So I'm a full-service investigative agency, so we do a little bit of everything. We do background checks. Right now, a big one is safe online dating. If anybody is meeting people online, you definitely need to have them checked out. The stories I could tell you are frightening. I'm just telling you that. So we're doing a lot of that. Also, if you have anyone in your home, say nanny, caring for a relative, renovating your home. If you're going to have people inside your home, I would highly recommend doing some type of background check on them. We also do child custody. That's my passion. Back to my days as a juvenile probation officer, that's where I learned working with kids. Well, what I learned is so many times these kids who were acting out, it stemmed from home. These were bad home lives. It was maybe divorced families, and one parent was raising them one way and the other parent was raising them another way, and or the parents were using the kids as a pawn to get to the other parent. And so what happened was all of this negativity came out on the children, who were then acting out negatively. And guess what? Then they became, you know, a part of my life, and I was like their other parent supervising them. So I learned I don't want these kids to end up being with the wrong parent. So child custody, which is my passion, I work hard at helping to make sure the kids end up with the right parent. And maybe we can avoid all those kind of problems that, how kids got onto probation. So that's why I love child custody. And I also transport at-risk youth. I don't know, Gail, did you see on my website that I'm also an owner of Next Step Youth Transport Services? So that's my sister company. So what we do is these are kids going to wilderness programs and therapeutic boarding schools. Parents are hiring us to come in, pick them up, and take them to a program. And I'm real picky on who works with these kids because they're struggling kids. So that's one of my big passionate areas on what I do. We also do some criminal. I'm not crazy about criminal. I don't know about you, Valerie. Criminal's not really what I like to do, and I know y'all write a lot of crime stories. I'm just saying it's hard for me to handle certain, cases that are criminally related. And that's mainly because I had a sex offender threaten me, and he's still sitting in prison telling me he's going to come after me when he gets out of jail. So after going through that whole experience with him, and that's the other thing about this job, we get threats. I have to keep my address hidden as much as possible, but nowadays on the internet, you can find anybody just about anywhere. And so you have to be very careful. I have a family, I have grandkids, so I worry about everybody's safety. But that's when I decided, okay, I don't know if criminal work is something I want to totally focus on, but I do. There are some of my attorneys that I will take their request. They'll say, hey Angie, I know you don't do criminal a whole lot, but will you take this case? Sure, I do it, and I will do it, and I enjoy doing it. It's just, I'm selective on what cases I take. Let's see, we also do insurance. One of Valerie's specialties is working with insurance fraud or workers' compensation cases. And we also do asset searches. People are, I'm going to sue someone, I need to see if they have money and if they're even worth suing. And so we'll do a lot of those. Divorce, just flat infidelity, we get a lot of those. And I'm trying to think what else. That's kind of the main type of cases. However, what I've learned about being a PI, you never know what the next phone call is going to bring. It's crazy. I actually, probably one of the craziest calls I ever got. This was only about 6 months ago, and she wanted me to find an elephant. And I swear to you, this is a real legit call. So I'm like, you want me to find an elephant? And she said, yes, he needs to be rescued. He's a famous elephant. And I can't remember his name now, but I actually found him on the internet. And he does exist, and he is a real famous elephant. And she said, I'm trying to buy this elephant, and this man who owns this circus will not sell him to me. But he's old, he needs to retire. And so I was going to be hired to find this elephant who was at a circus in Dallas. And she wanted us to find the owner after we found the elephant and persuade him to sell the elephant to her. So I was very excited about getting this case because I had never been hired to find an elephant. But at the last minute, we found out the circus had moved. And so they were not in the Dallas area. They travel all over the world, the circus does. So I did not get to work that case, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what kind of phone calls. It can be a quiet afternoon, and one phone call can change my entire day or my entire week. So being a private investigator is very unpredictable. It can be exciting. It can be boring as all get out. It's not what you see on TV where you snap your fingers and you're getting all your evidence right in front of you. It just doesn't work that way. I sure wished it did. There are challenges. There are safety issues. But overall, it can be extremely rewarding. It's tiring. Try being a woman sitting in a car for 14 hours and you need to go to the bathroom, or I need to drink coffee to stay awake because I've been up all night. But if I drink coffee, then I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and I can't leave my site. So what do? So we have to get real creative. And it's not as glamorous as some people can think. We've had to learn some really neat, unique techniques. I'm sure Valerie can attest to that. But overall, it's a great career. I'm glad to see more and more women get into this industry because, like I said earlier, I do think we're actually very good at it. It's real funny because, and the reason I say that is like we're real observant. We pay attention to detail. So I'll have a team working, and my male agent will say, he was in a blue car. And then my female agent will go, he was in a green car. And I'm going, what color was the car? Was it blue? Was it green? Or what color dress did she have on? Well, Valerie would say red, when he would probably say black. And so what I do is, whatever the female says, I go with what she says. Because I already know she's probably right. Down to the type of purse and the type of lipstick and the type of heels. And yeah, so that's one reason why I really like that more and more women are getting into this profession. So I know we're already kind of moving along. So I want to try to incorporate some of your questions, and then I can elaborate on that, because I've got crazy stories, I've got all kinds of things. Yes, sir?
What are the licensing and experience requirements in Texas for PI?
Okay, so we are, of course, licensed in the state of Texas. Every state has a different license requirement. So in the state of Texas, you can either have a criminal justice degree, a bachelor's degree, that's one, which is what I had, or you can work under someone, a manager, for 3 years. And that 3 years needs to be consistent, work. Not, I worked for you 3 years and I worked one case each year. But it's up to the manager, which is like me, the business owner. If they work for 3 consecutive years and get experience, then they can get the signature of the owner and go take their owner-manager test. We now have a school up in Denton, Texas, at North Texas State called PDI. It's about a 6 to 8 month long course, and you can go through that course, and if you successfully graduate from that course, you can go take your owner-manager license. So that's the basic requirements to become a PI, and you have to be licensed. I get people who call and go, "Are you licensed?" Yes, you have to be, or it is a crime if you're acting as a PI in the state of Texas and you're not licensed. Yes?
Okay, it's under the Department of Public Safety.
Yes.
Okay, how does that work? They license you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, does the license allow you to get into their records?
Yes, we are in their records. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you can get in and find out what car belongs to who?
Yes.
Okay, can
Online?
they get into your
Yes.
information?
They have our information?
Yeah. do
Yes.
They have your, okay.
Yes.
Okay, if you're working on a case, they know what case you're working on.
No, only when it comes to licensing.
Oh,
So they don't know all my
Okay,
cases.
okay.
Right, and they don't need to know. That's confidential.
Well, that's what I was wondering,
Yes.
where
No,
that
no.
broke off.
No, they will have my information. They have to know where my files are. They have to know where they can find me, because we do get audited. We have
Okay,
random
okay.
audits.
Okay, okay.
And there are requirements of this audit, and if we don't pass that audit, we can lose our license or we can be fined, and then we're given time to correct it.
Do you have access to any other governmental information?
Some. Everybody's a little bit different. So we have databases that only PIs and law enforcement have access to.
Okay.
So, for example, background checks. The databases that we have access to, the general public don't. So when you go online, if you want to do a background check, you can go to some of these online and pay whatever. However, majority of those databases that are available to the public contain old information, sometimes up to 3 years old. You're not going to get the current stuff. If you go through a PI, and a PI goes through the databases that we have access to, then that is going to be more current information. But with that being said, what I always tell people is no database is 100% accurate, because all the information comes from somebody who has entered that data. And so that is why sometimes that information can be incorrect or like especially juniors and seniors. Those are the worst. And they can have a wrong date of birth. One number can be plugged in for someone, and it'll tie you to somebody else. So you run the background, and then you have to kind of go through and decipher what's possibly correct or what's correct and what's incorrect is what you have to do here. Yes, yes.
Licensing, you are licensed in the state of Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to New York? Is it reciprocal, or
So-
how do you do this? You're not reciprocal in every state.
Exactly. So what we have to do is when we travel outside of
Mhm.
Texas, we have to work under a private investigator who is in that state for that particular case. So I've had cases all over the United States. So what we do is we have a network of private investigators, and we reach out to someone we trust in that state, and then we work with them and under their license for that case. Yes, ma'am.
What about, do you have someone in, say, Cozumel, Cancun?
Yes, we do. So I just became a member of, it's called the World Association of Detectives, WAD. This is an international association to where we have access to private investigators in other countries. I just became a member of this, so I'm just learning more about it and what I have access to. So that's kind of new to me, but this is a new service that I'm starting to do is international services, but I'm kind of learning as I go. So in this association, we have a list of people in all these other countries where we can utilize them and their licensing in what their country, because of course, every state, every country has different requirements. Colorado did not require a PI to be licensed until recently. Yeah, this is a brand new thing for the state of Colorado. So everybody's different, you have to look at that. So, yes ma'am.
Just a comment on the background search, mainly for everybody else, I'm sure you knew that. Sometimes you have similar names. We had a problem with one of my sons. He had the same birthday, a year apart, as another boy, same race, same thing. Social Security Department gave them both the same Social Security number. And I'm a substitute teacher. The school district where I teach, there is another woman. The only difference in our names is middle name. So our birthdays happen to be 3 days apart same year. So, and they access, if something's down, that's the way they tell which one you are, they look you up. So I know when her birthday is, she could know when my birthday is, then she could maybe use that information. So that's another thing, you can have contamination from something like that. And it was very difficult to get straightened out for my son's getting his Social Security number changed. I had to go through the system twice to do it and make sure. And I'm still in fear that that kid might find out his information.
Right.
So,
yeah, I actually had a young man come to me several years ago and he had applied for a job and it came back that he had a rap sheet. He said, I've never been arrested a day in my life. And he goes, I need your help to prove this person is not me that has this rap sheet. So that's exactly what we had to do. We ran our own background check, and then I took all the identifiers, Social Security number, Texas driver's license number, date of birth. I took all of it, and then I had to basically go back and pick and pull and confirm who he was and who he wasn't, and basically kind of redid a background on him with the correct information, and then we were able to prove that what the agency had gotten was not him. We get a lot of those kind of calls, especially with all the identity theft happening these days. People, this is happening a lot, more and more. And so I always recommend people to run your credit report on a frequent basis, and maybe every once in a while call a PI and say, I'd like a background check on me. I just want to see what it looks like. I get that a lot. And what's showing up and who is it showing I'm tied to, because the ones we run also show relatives, show associates, bankruptcies, liens, judgments, properties owned, voter registration, professional licensing, addresses, bless you, it's vehicles. So from time to time I'll have someone call me and just go, I'm going to go apply for this job, and I'm real worried because, you know, my dad, who was a criminal, we kind of have the same name, our middle name's different. I want to make sure that the problems he had is not showing up on my background. So we get those kind of calls a lot, and we're getting them more and more. So, yes ma'am.
You were talking about the man who said he wanted to just hire women from now on. And other than like women notice what the woman's wearing or might notice it better, what other things would make him say that, do you think?
Well, a lot of what
Qualities.
we have more patience. And then, let me tell you, before I go into that, there is one of my agents that I use who is a man who does a phenomenal job. And there are certain cases I want him on because I feel like he has the best strengths for that type of case. So, you know, I kind of look at everybody's strengths and weaknesses.
So
and
it's
then
individual.
it's right. However, the majority of women, and I'm talking broad here, the majority of women tend to do better than the men because of all these extra little things. We think outside the box. a lot of the male agents that I've worked with, and I do have male agents that work for me because there are times that I need them for safety reasons. We're on the bad side of town. Strip clubs won't allow females to go in alone. You have to have a male person with you. So, and then also an environment where I need a couple. I want them to look like a married couple at a romantic restaurant having wine while somebody else is doing the same thing that shouldn't be. So, you know, there's times that I need that setting. So I'm not knocking men, I promise you. That's not, I have 2 boys of my own who actually both have worked for me. So, but also in writing reports, my girls do really good at writing reports. One of my men, very detail oriented. Back to the thinking outside the box. One of my attorneys told me, he said, the reason I like you, Angie, is you think outside the box. He said, a lot of the men that I've worked with in the past, it's tunnel. You know, well, if I can't drive up, get the picture, and catch them cheating right in front of me, I couldn't get it. Us women tend to go, okay, there's got to be another way we can get this accomplished, you know. And so we have to go outside. We go outside that box. And I always say, what opportunity presents itself? So I had a female agent who we were watching a trailer park. One was the owner, and then she had a trailer here that she had for rent. Well, she had a sign out there that said, actually, for sale. She had a for sale sign. So my agent is doing surveillance, and she calls me. She goes, Angie, there's a for sale sign on one of the trailers right across from our subject. And I went, really? We're going to make that work for us. So she went and knocked on the door, and the person in the trailer said, that's the owner across the street, our subject. Ooh, imagine that. So all of a sudden, she needed a place to stay. We made up this whole story. Her husband kicked her out. She needed a place to stay. She goes, you know what? It's for sale, but hey, I'll rent it to you. Done. How much? So I ended up moving my agent, of course with client's permission. I moved my agent into this trailer right across from our subject. And guess what? Every night they partied. And guess what? Every night they did drugs. And they invited my agent because now she was renting. And so and then one day she said, hey, come into my trailer, our subject. And my agent's like, sure. And goes into her trailer and she's showing where her stash is. Her stash of drugs in the freezer. And I mean, we're getting all this information. And we were all invited. There was nothing wrong with the evidence. We were able to testify in court because she was invited in. She was invited to do drugs. I mean, so my client, hands down, won custody of this child. And this was a dad.
Wow.
This was a dad. And this was on his ex-wife. Yes. So, again, what opportunity presents itself? So when my agents call me and say, Angie, we've got this, we've got that, I'll start asking questions. Okay, well, and then we start thinking, how can we make this work for us? And that's what a lot of women do that not so many men do. Like I said, I'm not knocking men, I'm just saying we tend to do those kind of things more than the men do. So, hope that answered your question, but
Yeah, it gives me some good ideas.
okay, very good. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Have you worked in missing persons cases?
Yes, I
Can you talk
have.
a little bit about that experience and maybe a little bit of what you rely on in terms of getting started when someone is missing unexpectedly and you think that they haven't run away? For example, what you might do at the beginning of that process to better understand who it is you're looking for, what you would do.
Yes, so I do a lot of runaway work, and my runaway work and my missing person, and I also consider my runaways a missing person. So kind of what I do is very similar. So when someone calls me and says, my 17-year-old is missing or my father is missing, I immediately request to come to where they lived. I want to search their room, their house, whatever I have. I also ask, do they have a cell phone? Do they have a computer? Is it with them? Is it gone? What is left behind? And that's kind of where I start, that's where I start. Do we have friends? Do we have girlfriends or boyfriends? What kind of car? I drill and drill and drill, and based on what I get, then that kind of opens the doors for me to, when was the last time someone spoke to them? Do they have social media? Do they have Instagram? Do they have Twitter? Do they have Facebook? Social media is huge today. That's when us as private investigators, when I get a case, I don't care what kind of case it is, I'll be talking to people on the phone and I'm already looking for them on Facebook before I ever know anything about the case. I just need a name, I start looking for them. When she applied for a job, I went right to Facebook and found her and knew what she looked like before we even decided if I was going to send her an application. So that is huge in the PI world today, is any of that. And so when it comes to missing people or runaways, that is, we start looking online. And then it kind of goes from there, depending on where the trail takes me from there. So that's kind of, I'm running out of time. So hopefully that kind of helped answer a little bit. I don't know until I get in there and I start digging. And I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for evidence left behind as to, a note. Again, computers, cell phones, social media, friends, cars. And any of you who have children or teenagers or grandkids, I always tell people, when your kids get in trouble, do not take the car away and do not take the phone away. Do not turn the phone off. Because the first thing I do in looking for a missing child is I look for cell phone records, I have a car and I have a license plate to look for. If you have a cell phone, we can get the cell phone records and we can start tracking where their phone calls are coming from, in and out. I've tracked many runaways that way. So there have been some parents that will call me and say, well, they got in trouble, they snuck out, so I took the phone away, I took the car away, and they're gone now. And I always tell them, well, you just took away the items I need to help track your child. So, in the old days, that's what you did. I got grounded, I got the car taken away from me. I didn't have a phone at that time, but it didn't exist at that time. And but today, that's what I tell parents. Don't take those items away, because that's our tool, especially if you think there's a possibility they could run away. Absolutely. What, any other, someone else? Yes?
If you have somebody comes to you with an old case, say 20, 30 years ago, and they didn't agree with the police decision at the time, what would be your starting point? Where would you?
I would start from scratch. That's how I would do things. Have y'all heard of Rachel Cook? Rachel Cook, who's been missing from Georgetown?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's an example. I'm actually going to start working on that case pro bono. I live right down from where she went missing. And I feel like it's just something telling me I need to work on this case. And the head detective who was on it for years, who has every bit of information on that case, who knows it better than anyone, happens to be one of my very dearest friends. So it's kind of like everything's aligning perfectly, but I already told him, and he said, I'll help you, Angie, I'll help you start on this. And I told him, I start from scratch. I'm going to start at the very beginning, and I'm going to, move forward from there. That's how I do things, because there can be things that were missed from the very beginning. I would retrace everything, and that's how I handle taking on a case that's that old.
Have you found that there was intentional police avoidance of facts?
Absolutely, yes.
Hidden even?
Yes. It's more common than people think, is that evidence either accidentally, due to poor investigating, so they try to cover their tracks. Somebody knows someone, so it just goes missing. I mean, those things definitely do happen. John Benet Ramsey is a prime example of that happening due to the Ramseys. And there's a lot more about that case that I recently found out too that I didn't know. Yes?
Kind of ties in with that. What is kind of your normal relationship with local law enforcement?
I try to keep in very good cahoots with them. Yeah, they need to be my friend. Just in everyday surveillance, we have to call dispatch, let them know we're in the area, because neighbors are calling, there's a strange car in the neighborhood, and so I like to stay very close to dispatch and to any of the law enforcement. Robert Chody, our new sheriff, who in Williamson County is actually a friend of mine. I have kept a good relationship with him, not only because he's just a great guy, but because he is our new sheriff or will be here in a couple of months. So that's very, very important, especially us who do a lot of surveillance, because neighbors can't stand to see a strange car sitting there with a person in it and they call police, and we're going, don't do that. I mean, we want you to call police if you think there's a suspicious person, but I have also had many cases where clients were paying big money, maybe a child custody case, very important, a child being abused, and we're out there trying to protect the child, and there's neighbors all around, calling the cops and blowing our whole cover. And I'm going, oh, if y'all only knew what y'all are doing to us. So that's where law enforcement, or having a good relationship with law enforcement, really comes into effect. Because we'll call them and say, please don't come out and blow our cover. And we'll tell them, these are our cars, this is where we're sitting, please don't come blow our cover. Most of the time they won't. Now if we're somewhere like Killeen, ooh,
They don't communicate.
the worst. Killeen's hands down the worst police department we've ever had to deal with. Oh my gosh, anyway, that's another story. So we'll call them and tell them we're out there, we're on an important case, we are licensed, we have a job, we have a right to be here, and they'll still send someone and blow us up. When I say blow us up, lights, pull us out of the car, and then there goes our subject as we're dealing with police, and we're going, yes.
Well, sometimes you have to tell the neighbors, because he's blind, but he knows if there's a car with someone in it. And one time he sent me out to ask someone if they needed help. He thought they were lost or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he was out with the dog and observed them. Well, it turned out they were watching, it was the police, and in an undercover car. And they were watching the neighbor, I guess because of a suspicion of some kind of illegal activity. Well, if we had known, I wouldn't have gone out there.
Right.
And I didn't see him out, so hopefully I didn't blow their cover, but I felt real bad about it because I didn't know.
The only reason we don't tell the neighbors is because I had a situation where they found out we were a PI, and she went online to the neighborhood watch and alerted everybody that a PI was in the neighborhood, including our subject.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't always do it. But
Yes.
I mean,
So our story is we're process servers. We're looking for someone to serve papers.
yeah.
End of story.
Okay, I think it's 1:15.
Yes, and I hate that I have to go. I'd love to answer
Thanks
more and
very
more
much.
questions. I will come back.
Yeah, we want you to come back.
I'll leave a couple of cards.
Great.
So that if anybody wants to call me, email me,
Okay.
y'all feel free to. And I'm so sorry I have to rush
Well,
off. I
this
feel
has been a
really
great
bad.
program, thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you
Okay,
again.
thank you so much, Gail.